we all have to protect the freedom of the media. We have to protect the freedom of the media. Whichever country you are, even if you have the best democracy in the world today, if you don't protect it by protecting media freedom and rights, then in no time you can find yourself in a state, in a situation like it is in Russia today. Let us not accept to go back to a period where media censorship by the state and the dominance and control of the media by the state, so that on 6th August 2024, the Russia-Ukraine war took a significant turn. The Ukrainian armed forces, the AFU, launched an incursion into Russia in the Kursk Oblast region. The AFU clashed with the Russian armed forces and the Russian border guards. Incursion, a term that you've heard throughout this period that there has been this significant development. It is a term that experts in war and military affairs describe as something lying in between full invasion and a hostile attack, something that is a little bit less than a full-scale invasion. Reports have indicated that at least 1,000 troops of the Ukrainian armed forces, the AFU, crossed the border, supported by tanks and armored vehicles. This war has now lasted for about 900 days, beginning 24th of February 2022, when Russia first invaded the territory of Ukraine. And at its commencement, Russia, being the lion, had high expectations that it would enter Ukraine and crush it in a few days and be done with. However, 900 days down the line, Kyiv has not fallen. Kyiv is still standing. It has not faltered, but it has been bruised. Its buildings, a debris, a whisper in the night, a distant hum from a land thought weak, where shadows ran. The mighty lion slept, secure in might, unaware the sparrow took to flight. With wings of steel and heart of steel, the sparrow struck with a force surreal. 1,000 miles from its humble nest, it pierced the lion's armored chest. The world awoke to a thunderous sound. The giant brought to its knees and bound. The sparrow sang with a voice so bold, a tale of power that could not be sold. For in the game of power and pride, it's not just the size, but the spirit inside. The lion once feared now questions the skies, as the sparrow soars to everyone's surprise. By 31st July 2024, the OHCHR, that is, the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, recorded 35,160 civilian casualties in Ukraine since February 24th, 2022. Out of these, 11,520 were killed and 23,640 had been injured. However, as it acknowledges, is that the number might be so high because, as you all know, one major issue that has been the entire period of this war is the limited nature of information. Beneath the sky where the eagle soar, the earth now bears the scars of war. Once fertile fields, now barren ground. Where flowers bloomed, no life is now found. The winds that danced through the verdant trees now carry whispers of lost pleas. The rivers sweep with silent tears, their crystal waters stained by fears. Mountains once proud now stand in grief, their peaks obscured by clouds of disbelief. The cost of war, a cruel strife. It turns nature's breath into a knife. Now, this war comes from a background of Russia's annexation of the Crimea in 2014. There are a lot of socio, political, and cultural ties between the people of Ukraine and the Russians. And there's a lot of dimension into this war. If you listen to the Russian side, the arguments put forward by Russia's president, Vladimir Putin, is that they still perceive and see Ukraine as part of Russia. Over the period of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, from way back in 2014, and then later again to a full-scale invasion in 2022, that has now lasted for 900 days and counting, is that the war has been fought in the Ukrainian territory, within the Ukrainian borders. But on 6th August, the Ukrainian military took a bold move and went into Russia, deep inside Russia. The war is not only at Putin's door, it is in his soil. Currently, reports coming out of Russia indicate that Russia is making strategies to evacuate the civilian population out of the areas that are now being affected by war, because Russia is also strategizing on response, on how to respond to this incursion. And the cost of war, unfortunately, is that civilian casualties are usually high. The people pay the price. The evacuation process has further been extended to the areas of Belgorod. Now, forgive me if I don't pronounce it well, because I would say I'm fluent in speaking Russian. Following this incursion, the Russian government has responded, in fact, calling on the international community to hold Ukraine responsible, to hold Ukraine to account. How outrageous, how unbelievable. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs have put a message through the spokesperson of the Russian Foreign Ministry, going by the name Maria Zakharova. She said this, according to the TASS, that, quote, with their barbaric attack in the Kursk region, Ukrainian bandits tried to sow panic among residents of the region and demonstrate at least some semblance of activity amid constant failures of the Ukrainian forces in the conflict area. Obviously, expectations by neo-Nazis failed to come true there as well. How unbelievable. How unbelievable. And how unbelievable if Russia itself has been doing the same in Ukraine. How many civilian deaths have been reported? And now Russia would come out and cry. On the other hand, the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, when he met the top defense and security officials to discuss the ongoing developments, he accused Ukraine of, quote, indiscriminate shelling of civilian buildings, residential houses, ambulances with different types of weapons. How unbelievable. Because Russia has been doing the same in Ukraine for more than 2 years now. He has been doing the same things that he's accusing Ukraine of. He's been exactly doing the same thing, even worse. But there is something that is happening that probably people have not talked about enough. And this is the power, the influence, and the impact of information. The manner in which information is dispensed concerning this war, if it had been done the right way, if circumstances allowed that the free media, independent media would be so much focused on this, then I think the war would not have lasted the long it has lasted. But information has been used as a tool by both sides, both the Ukrainians and the Russians, in fighting this war. The lack of independent media engagement concerning this war, especially after it had lasted several months in 2022, there's a lot that has been going on that the world does not know, that Russians themselves do not know, that even Ukrainians might not know. And this is one of the things that has costed a lot of people their lives. Because, as we are going to discuss in a later stage, information is power. Information is power. But right now, we do not know much, because you don't know who to trust. You cannot trust Russia to give you the correct information. Neither can you trust Ukraine to give the correct information. The bully has finally found someone who is standing up to them at last. And now they are whining about the need to respect international law, to respect human rights, because it is Russian. But when Ukrainians were dying the other side, and they were involved in all these acts, heinous acts, acts of barbarism, they thought it didn't matter. They thought, I fail to understand. What goes around comes around. And to my perspective, I think this is one of the messages that the Ukrainian army, the Ukrainian military, is trying to send out to the Russians and to the world. The one significant thing that has stood out throughout the whole duration of this war is the power of information, the ability of both states, both Russia and Ukraine, to control information that gets out to their citizens and to the world. And this has become both an advantage and a disadvantage to the two parties, to the two sides, to the two warring factions. However, the lack of a free, independent media, or its limitation thereof in covering this war, poses significant implications that we will address in a few. We all know that information is power. There is this famous phrase that we all say, information is power. Information is key to decision making. It is key to problem solving. It is key to understanding. And the best way to reap these benefits of information in the context of a war, like in the case of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, is by having a free, independent media to report on this war. And I think if that would have been possible to a significant degree, then the stakes would have changed right now. With all these speculations, it is still apparent that information is still being used by both Ukraine and Russia as a tool in this war. The lack of a free independent media is surely a big thing. And that is the lesson that we all have to carry. And we have to acknowledge that a free independent media plays a critical role in our society today for democracy, for freedom, for the fight for justice.